Now, I've interviewed Charles Nenner for many, many years. When I've interviewed Charles, he would never say what he thought the reason for why. He was more concerned with what is going to happen. And he'd say, my charts can tell me when. So I know when it's going to happen and I know what is going to happen. I don't necessarily need to know why. And that's what my timing model is telling us. It's telling us what is happening and it's telling us when. So it continues to predict that we have a pretty vicious downturn coming to us. It's going to be a very epic correction. It's already underway in the asset class, and that asset class includes commercial, business, retail, and it shows it. So let me go to my next slide. Let's talk about this. We saw this. This timing model has been deadly accurate as we go along. It predicted the two corrections, and right here in March of 2020, it predicted the uh, accumulation phase would start, and this is the accumulation phase. Then we went into the explosive phase, and this is where most of the money is made. And when you get up around the top here, this is the danger spot because right after this, the cycle starts to complete and it rolls over and all that fun you had going up, you have a terrible time coming down because it needs to complete. So when it went up 3% a month, 4% a month, it is going to come down 3 and 4% a month. And you can see that. You can see that in commercial. It's all across the country. And those parts of the country that are being affected the most, where they're having problems with the commutes, they're having problems with the inner city, they're having crime, they're having bad governance. They are getting really, really hammered and they're collapsing. So let me go to my next slide and let's just talk about that. Now, San Francisco is certainly one of the ones we've been talking about. I've used this slide before. This is the four seasons in March of 2024. They were 90 days behind. Here we are in July, heading in July 4th, and things haven't changed. This is just part and parcel of what we're going to see in the completion stage of the real estate cycle. And it is just like in the 80s, 86, 87, 88. It is a duplicate of it. In that time frame, we had commercial lead the way there too. And that's what's happening this time. And it sucked the housing into it, and housing rolled over, but did follow it later on. But it was two phases. And just like now, just as the asset model is predicting, commercial is leading the way. Same thing across the country. Now, Pittsburgh is having its problems, but I just got this slide maybe 2 months ago. The Pittsburgh Gazette is estimating that 17 buildings in Pittsburgh have trouble. They're underway of being distressed. And another 9 have been identified as good possibility that they're going to be in distress too. Have 26 buildings in downtown Pittsburgh that account for over $30 million in real estate fees are at risk of default. Now, when you start having a central business district like this start to falter, that means there's no commuting fees, there's no parking fees, there's no gas stations that are fueling trucks. There's no one going out and getting breakfast. They're not going out and having lunch. They're not shopping after work or between breaks. They're not going into entertainment. They're not having happy hours. So all the business district, all the retailers, they start having problems too. And that's exactly what we're seeing all across the country in the business districts, in the downtown corridors. And it's just part and parcel for what we see. So let me go to my next slide. Now, these are what we call the endangered cities. So when I say that they're an endangered city, that means that they've got bad governance. People are leaving. They've got crime. They've got bad taxes. They're having problems with people not wanting to come to work. And of course, we have lots and lots of vacancies. Now, we've identified 5 to 10 office towers, 30, 40, 50, 60-story buildings that are at risk each month with millions and millions and millions of dollars of commercial mortgage-backed securities on them. And what we're hearing is that there are over 600 billion. Can you believe that? $600 billion worth of losses that haven't been realized yet. That's greater than a great financial crisis. That is terrible. That means a lot of our banks are really, really in trouble. And here's what I'm also hearing is that the Signature Bank went down lots and lots of foreclosures in its portfolio. And of course, that's with FDIC now because Signature went bad, and the FDIC is getting and accumulating more and more properties, and they're not telling anybody about this. So it's coming. They're here. They've already been foreclosed on. They've defaulted. And it's in that pretend stage where we're not going to tell anybody about it because we're trying to manage it. But it's getting to the point where $600 billion that they're talking about. Now, that's with the banks. Now, you have to realize that we have an awful lot of shadow financials as well. So when you're talking about hedge funds, we're talking about REITs. We're talking about insurance companies. We're talking about pension funds. We're talking about healthcare companies. You know, they're looking to put, and we're getting a lot of foreign banks as well. So when we went through this period of time where we had almost no place that you could get any kind of yield. So a lot of people went into the commercial mortgage-backed securities, even from across the globe. As far as Japan's got a lot of them here. You know, we've got Korean loans here. We've got lots of German loans here, and they're going bad. So this is going to become an international problem. So it's $600 billion with the banks. There's probably a lot more. Maybe we're up to $1 trillion. We've identified almost $11 trillion of commercial properties at risk. Now, I'm telling you, the asset model is telling us that it is going to correct, and it is going to be a severe correction. Now, you can believe us or you can not believe us, but we're telling you that if you have something to sell, you need to sell it now. You know, the housing market is fairly viable. Now we're coming through, you know, June is generally like the end of the big selling season. So you still have some spillover July and August. If you've been thinking about selling it and you're trying to get that maximum price, you'd better do it and do it now. The same way we've been talking about these endangered cities. Let me blow this up just a little bit. I want you to understand that we call them endangered cities. Now, Detroit and Baltimore are not on this list because they are already failed. I almost didn't want to put San Francisco because that is really heading toward failed city status. And once these cities fail, you can see where properties are taking 60 to 90% losses on the properties, and the banks are taking it back, and it's going to destabilize a lot of small banks. So if you're in, and it gets to be a spiral. So if you're in one of these cities, you have to ask yourself, what am I doing here? You know, we've been pounding the table on other videos. And by the way, if you like our videos, give us a thumbs up, subscribe, tell your friends about us, give us some comments, let us know what your thoughts are. We do our very best with this. We're not infallible, but we do a lot of research on this. I've been talking about doing a 1031 exchange. That's what we've been doing a lot of. Now, we haven't put any new money out for a long time, but we've been moving properties from these endangered cities to Florida, Texas, and Arizona. And of course, I'm in Phoenix. Phoenix is just doing incredibly well. You know, it's a terrific market. Well, our last video, we talked about that. But for about $1,500, most people can transfer a property from Seattle or Portland or, you know, San Francisco. You can sell $1 million property in San Francisco, buy two $500,000 properties in Phoenix, and you're going to have a 1031 exchange cost of about $1,500, $1,600, $1,700, something like this. That can be very, very much. But you know what's nice? There's no capital gains. So if you got $100,000, $200,000, $300,000 in capital gains, you don't realize that event. So you're able to move that capital intact without a taxable event to a better property, to a better location where you're going to make more money. Because if you leave it in these cities, you run the risk of a severe correction. Now, Phoenix is not going to be immune, but it's not going to take like what these guys are going to take. These guys are going to take a shellacking. So we don't want that to happen to you. So let me go to my next slide, and let's just talk about that one. So we're still looking at this. I've used this slide before. This is a very good illustration. So here, a $97 million loan default in the financial district of San Francisco. Starwood's defaulting, $212 million in North Atlantic, just an absolutely stunning building. But of course, once the real estate interest loan goes up, it becomes no longer viable. So they walk away, default it, and the bank gets it. And the bank was going to sell it. They've got $212 million. Now they'll sell it for half that probably. Now here in Phoenix, 3 years ago, it was a great idea. We couldn't get enough. We just couldn't get enough apartments and properties to rent. We just couldn't do it. And 3 years ago, it was a great idea for you to build an A property. Let's get it built, and we'll make a lot of money. So everybody did that. So here in Phoenix, which is a great rental market. Now, I'm going to tell you, we're in a single-family, conservative, affordable home. So most of my rentals are under $2,000 a month, and the average in Phoenix is $2,150 to $2,250. So we're below the average, and we are 100% occupied. Now, the 8 properties, which is what everyone's building, we've got a ton of them coming to fruition now. They're completing, and they're trying to lease them up. But of course, what happens? It takes you 3 years to get this done. Well, when they went from construction loan to end term loans, and of course the interest rates doubled, and a lot of these places are in trouble. And our average rent is $2,200. A lot of them are looking for $2,500, $2,700, and it's very, very difficult to lease these up. And we are looking at vacancy of 9%. We're number 5 in the country for a low occupancy, and that is why. So I think that's going to be a problem. Going to be with us for a while. It doesn't affect me at all. We're 100%. We're full. Affordability. Now, we recognize, you're welcome to go back and look at my other videos. We recognize that years ago, we wanted to maximize our tenant, not maximize rent. And if we were renting the market, our properties just a little bit below market. So instead of getting one application, we would get 4 or 5. We could choose the very, very best. And of course, we're looking for people that would stay there for a long time. We don't like rollovers at all. That just costs us way too much money. And we don't like vacancy. So we've been running our properties very, 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 very lean and doing very, very well. So we teach these classes on vacancy. I'm going to tell you right now, we have a slice about this much, a really small slice. We want our properties leased in maybe a week or 2 weeks. 3 weeks, we're just pulling our hair out. 4 weeks, we're having a nightmare. So sometimes we get a tenant-rich 1 week, and that's great. Then we can get maximum rent. But sometimes if we get a bad week and it's not tenant rich, well, we're not going to get what we think, but we're going to get at least, because we do not want to suffer vacancy. I'm telling you, if you go a month vacant, you're going to lose money at the end of the year. So we want to get these properties leased and leased correctly, right on as quickly as we possibly can. And we don't want turnover. We try to get someone, our tenants, we're in that 3-bedroom, 2-bath, 2-car garage, good school districts, good transportation, 1,400 to 1,900 square foot single family home. Most of them are single level. We don't have a lot of 2 stories. And our tenants put down roots. They stay there for 5-6 years. This is very, very common for us. We don't like that turnover. It costs you a lot of money to turn these properties over. And so we like to stay in a very affordable range, and we just take our cash flow. It works very, very well. It's a really good platform for you. Now, when you talk about these apartments, this is a timing issue for them. When they started, it was probably a good idea, not so much anymore. So what about office space? Same thing is happening. We're having problems. When you don't have people going downtown going into the office, and they're going downtown to work, they're not buying lunch and breakfast and dinner and entertainment. They're not spending money. These people are suffering from it. This just goes hand in hand with the real estate cycle. These guys are in trouble as well. You can see I picked this up. This hasn't changed. So Foot Locker, again, these guys are priced for perfection. They're used to having a lot of foot traffic. Literally, if you don't get people in to look at your properties, you're just not going to do well. So let me go to housing. I don't want to spend a lot of time with this. I keep pounding the table. It is affordability. It's not demand. It is literally affordability. It's the worst affordability we've had since the Volcker years in the 1980s, when it's just too expensive to own a property. It's much more affordable to rent from me than to buy a house. So this is the whole problem. There's plenty of demand. It's very, very hard for affordability. And if you build an expensive house, um, you're going to sell fewer of them. Now, I'm going to tell you, the market is a little skewed right now because the people who need to borrow money to buy, they can't do that because the house payment has doubled. I got this from Ken McElroy, and I suggest if you're in the industry and you like these videos, you might look at Ken McElroy's as well. He does a great job. Very, very intelligent guy. He's in more multifamily than I am. He's got much more properties than I have, but very, very smart guy, and very, very he can explain it really well. So we've been talking about cost to buy. This is his chart. The cost to buy the average property is almost $2,700, where you can rent for like $1,850. Well, this is a no-brainer. Cost you 52% more to own than to rent. Well, it just makes more sense to do that, particularly as the economy starts to cool. And of course, when we talk about $1,850 for rent, that's no taxes, no insurance, no HOA, no maintenance. Something breaks, you call the management company up. And we have never seen this kind of a differential before. So it's telling us it's right in line with our timing model, telling us what is going to happen and when. We don't necessarily need to know why. We just know what, and this is telling us what is happening. And it's just a signpost as we go along. Let me go to my next slide. We just look at this. I got this from Melody Wright. She sent this out. Now, this is probably going to change our a little bit of the statistics. So this is a little bit of arithmetic. Now, we are seeing the upper end is selling a lot more than the lower end. The upper end is way up. The upper end is way up. They're selling a whole lot more. They're up a lot. Let me go to that slide so you can see that even better. Nationally, they're up 22% year over year. In the Northeast, 36%. And look where people, when they have to finance, nationally, they're down 16.7%. So that means there's a whole lot more buying going on in the upper ranges than there are in the lower ranges. Does that mean that this middle range, these guys are kind of flat, is also going up in price? I think not. However, it's statistics. So when you have a whole lot on the upper end, you're going to get dragged up. And we saw this in 2007. So this peak number 2 in 2007 was actually higher than peak number 1, not by a little bit. It's not terribly significant. We don't see that quite yet, but we haven't had Q2 of 2024 come into our data yet. It should be any time. It could be higher. It could. I think there's a lot of reasons as to why the prices are going up. A lot of this, I've talked about this before. I think that this here represents a cash buyer for one. And it also, I think that we have some safe haven buying going on here too. I can't necessarily prove any of that, but I think so. Let me go to my next slide. Now, this is what we're talking about here. So here we got Q1 of 2024, which would be like right here at $421,000. Now, peak 1 came in Q2 of 2022 and has not been exceeded. It came in at $442,600. Right here, you can see it. This is coming out of Federal Reserve electronic data. It's the median sales price. It's not an index. It's not an estimate. There's no appraisal on it. This is actual the price. It's the median price of houses sold in the United States, and it's $442,600. Now, I called that peak 1, and I called this peak 2. Could this pop up a little bit to 443 or 445? It could. Then call this peak 2, peak 1 and peak 2, and this would just be kind of a popping along. Would not be unusual to do that. There's no hard and fast rules on this. Remember, we always look at these in the rearview mirror because data is always behind us. As it stands, the second peak was 435.4. and that was Q3 of last year. Still didn't exceed it. I mean, it's close. It's and I don't see a runaway train here where you're going to start seeing prices are going to become incredibly, homes are going to really just explode. I don't see that quite yet. I think my charts are telling us that we have a horrific retracement coming. It's going to be an epic retracement. You're going to see that in Florida and Texas a lot because I think they're overbuilt. And what happened here in Phoenix in 2007, 8, and 9, we were a construction town. We had hundreds of thousands of framers and roofers and concrete people doing tile, just working every single day. They couldn't build enough houses, and then that stopped. And then they left because they were construction people, and the construction went to zero here in Phoenix, and all those people left. And of course, when you have a population leave of 200,000 or 300,000 skilled labor, the economy just collapsed. So all the rentals became unempty. These people left. They were renting properties. They left to go work elsewhere. And of course, all the retail stores suffered, and the rentals came down, and prices came down. People lost their houses. Became a virtuous negative loop. And I think that will happen in Florida and Texas. Not so much here because we have changed our database. We're not a construction town anymore. We're a high tech and chip plant town, which is kind of unusual for us. I mean, not unusual, but it's just good. We're next to California. People are leaving California and taking their skills right next door. I mean, you can go from Phoenix to LA here in 5.5, 6 hours. So, it's not like we're isolated or anything, but I think that's what's happening. So let me go to my next slides here, and we'll just talk about that. So it is time for you to be cautious. I'm not saying don't buy. I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying that I think it is really time to be cautious. Trophy properties will be coming to the market. Those are for qualified individuals only. However, I think we have some buy points coming in the next 9 to 12 months. I think the first one will arrive, and I think everyone should start looking at those. Now, if you had 100% of your capital, I would say on the first buy put, you probably want to put 15 to 20% out, no more than that, because prices will come down. It won't be the number one. It won't be the last. It won't be the lowest price, but that's where the really good properties are, and I think that's coming probably. We're probably looking at that maybe spring of next year. I would say spring of next year, probably a good time to start thinking. So if you want to start getting ready, we're very inexpensive for a consultation. We'd be more than happy to sit down with you. I love your business. We start making some plans, see where we fit in. We'll start doing some strategies for you and start figuring out what we're going to do, where we're going to place their capital, and how this can do it. Because we are charged with making money for our clients. That is just what we do. And we don't want to lose any money. We want to be very, very cautious. This is sacred money to us. And we've done an incredibly good job with this. So let me go to my next slide here, and let's just talk about. You can reach me here at West USA. It's a $5 or $6 billion firm. They do our back office and our compliance work. And I would say to you, if you are in one of the endangered cities we've been talking about, it's time for you to get out. If you're in Seattle or in Portland or Los Angeles or San Diego, if you can get out, let's do a 1031 exchange. Let's move your investments from one place into a much, much better place. Don't pay any capital gains on that. Very, very inexpensive, and we can place that capital very, very well for you. You'd be very, very pleased. So look at it. Have a great 4th of July. We appreciate that. I love your comments. Give me a thumbs up. Subscribe. My very best to you guys. Bye-bye now.